The degeneracy of the hamlet is nothing, I fear, when compared to the condition of surrounding acres.
Hello and welcome to the second episode of Darkest Dungeon here on Not Your Professional Walkthroughs with me, your host Max. On today's episode, we will go on our first dungeon raid with the full party of 4. As in the previous episodes, we were able to recruit the Plague Doctor and the Vestal. So, let us embark.
A mecca of madness and morbidity. Your work begins.
So, as we can see, these are all the infected lands from the manor on top of the hill, where basically the portal to the other realm has been founded. This means that we will be tasked by clearing out the cove, the well, the warrens, the courtyard, the ruins, and even the dungeon itself. Now, we will obviously go for the ruins now, as on the left you can see it's a short, difficulty 1 type of dungeon. Red means this is for the darkest difficulty or level 6 heroes, which we do not have. Obviously, I can actually take the party of 4 that I have at my disposal to that dungeon, but most likely we would end up with everyone dead. And as I want to make this series at least few episodes long and not experience such a rage quit which I showed to you in the previous episode, let's go with the ruins. Now, each of these sections or parts of the map represent different types of enemies which can spawn. The courtyard has been added as the Crimson Court DLC. Farmstead has been added as the Color of Madness. Therefore, we will not be able to access the courtyard or the farmstead before we unlock the entire town and we have cleared out at least a couple of the ruins or the dungeons in the Cove, Ruins, Warrens, and Weld, which were the original lands which we can access. But let's stop talking, let's start killing.
The cost of preparedness, measured now in gold, later in blood.
These are the possible provisions. Now the fun thing is that if you want to add a hero or adventurer to your roster, you do not pay him. There's also not a wage which you need to pay to him, such as mercenary would get. But when you want to make sure he will survive the dungeon crawl, you need to equip him with the provisions. One of the most important ones is food. During the dungeon raid, you might be struck by hunger, and if you do not provide food or sufficient supplies to your men, they will receive stress debuff and also HP damage from starvation. So I'm gonna take a full stack of food. Now, shovel is used for clearing out rubble or interacting with some of the curios. Anti-venom is for the blight damage. So let's take this. Bandage is good for healing the bleeding. Medicinal herbs are good for clearing out debuffs from your heroes and also for interacting with the curios. Key usually is used only for unlocking specialized curios such as treasure chests and some display cases. I usually take the least amount of the keys. Holy water gives us a boost, and also based on your hero. Since we have a crusader in our ranks, we will always receive 1 holy water. Other classes will also provide you with a specific item from provisions. Tonic or the laudanum I never actually use. I'm sure there is a proper use for it, but I just never seen it necessary to occupy one of the inventory slots. So let's take 6 torches. And this should be pretty much it. We still cannot upgrade the gear of our heroes despite them being level 1. So we should be able to successfully complete the dungeon. Now what usually happens later on in the game to lots of people is that they've been through so many dungeons, they just want to skip through this part as fast as possible, often forgetting a shovel or more food or one of those items which might come in hand during the dungeon raid. Now each of these sections are specific to most enemies which will spawn most frequently. Ruins is a place for skeletons, bandits, and in the higher difficulty some bigger monsters. So most likely we will run into the occultists, the skeletons, and the bandits in this raid. Now, when we're moving from room A to room B, this is where we can run into curios. Some of them are basic and really welcome,
lifted, and purpose is made clear,
such as extra torch, or you can run into the curio in a room, but also most likely you will run into an engagement with your enemy here as well.
Continue the onslaught. Destroy them all.
Alrighty. So we have our first deeds, some jewels, and an extra shovel. Now the fun thing is that if you actually collect some items from the provisions by the end of the dungeon crawl and they remain in your inventory, the great thing is that you will get your money back, as these items will be sold as well. So you don't have to worry that it is just money spent on supplies for one single encounter. Now, what might happen during your move from room A to room B
Even the cold stone seems bent on preventing passage.
is that we will run into traps or more enemies. And I will try to kill the cultist acolyte first, because she can move my heroes around and cause lots of stress damage to my men.
Slowly, gently. This is how a life is taken.
Okay, so if I would want to go open vein on a skeleton, we see that their bleed resist is at 200%. This means that putting heroes that cause bleeding damage into ruins or against enemies who cannot really bleed is pointless. So later on in the game, I will try to put together parties which are most effective against certain kinds of enemies. Here, for example, the Blight from the Plague Doctor has only 10% to be resisted. So getting the Plague Doctor into ruins or cove is a really good choice for you if you will ever try to play the game.
Press this advantage. Give them no quarter. A momentary abatement. Another one falls. Ghoulish horrors. Brought low and driven into the mud.
And we have also received busts, which is really great. Now, what you need to know about deeds, busts, crests, and the paintings is that each of these items can be only stacked onto a certain amount. So let's say deeds. You can only stack up 6 deeds for 1 inventory slot. Meaning you cannot have hundreds of them in one raid. And you will need to decide often, especially in the later game, what items do you need, if you need more gold currently for some upgrade, or if you need more these types of items. And based on that, you will need to assess your situation, monitor what types of buildings and upgrades are you currently working on in order to be more efficient. Here we are faced with a difficult choice. If we move to either room, there will be a curio on our way there, but also we will run into enemy in each of the rooms. And afterwards there will be a trap, since we were able to scout the area thanks to the torchlight. So I will go into the room with treasure, as our inventory is kind of empty still. Rubies, wonderful.
The match is struck. A blazing star is born.
Okay, well, the brawlers are dangerous as they can cause bleeding to our men. And our men usually don't have that much resistance to bleeding. It also depends from the class itself. The bone soldiers will be mostly susceptible to melee damage, range damage, and blight. And once again, I will try to go for the Acolyte to get rid of her in the first place.
A singular strike. Great is the weapon that cuts on its own. As the fiend falls, a faint hope blossoms. Success so clearly in view. Or is it merely a trick of the light?
Okay, I'm gonna have to talk with Wayne about who talks when, cause I had to wait like 4 times already when he wanted to say something really scary and creepy. Here we have our first trinket. Now this is a great trinket for the start of the game, as if we look over our stats, we see that dodge of our Vestal, for example, is at 0. However, her speed is at 4. The higher the speed of your hero, the faster he will go in each encounter, meaning his turn will come before an enemy with speed of 3 or less. So, I think we will give our Vestal the trinket. Now, if you start to run out of inventory space and you still don't have sufficient amount of trinkets equipped for your heroes, the option is to utilize the 2 slots on each hero, which gives you 8 additional storage units for trinkets. And even if you don't like the trinket and you will want to get rid of it, as you can obviously sell them, you can still take them, try to risk having few debuffs on the end of your raid, and then eventually sell them, being able to, let's say, upgrade the armor of your hero as a result of taking a bunch of trinkets from the raid.
A handsome reward for a task well performed.
Okay, well, here we have a specific class-bound trinket. This is one of those occasions where you actually need to have the proper hero in your roster in order to store the trinket within their 2 slots. Otherwise, it will need to be stored in your inventory. Now, the cool thing about the treasure chest and one of the updates which came in the later game was that when you run into a treasure chest first time and you did not know that the skeletal key is the best item from your provisions to open the chest safely and possibly find a hidden compartment, next time when you ran into the treasure chest, you might have forgot about the skeletal key, which would get you to the hidden compartment. So let's say you would just open it and you would only get the basic stuff, or the chest can be trapped. Now, by utilizing the key, you usually disarm the trap, which is important. However, if we would run into another treasure chest, we would actually see a special highlight or icon above the skeletal key, which would let us know that this specific provision has an effect on the curio. So as we go further into the game and we run into some of those curios which we did not run into, or we don't run into them that often, it's actually helpful now for any player, and he does not need to open up, let's say, the wiki in the meantime to search for the proper provision for said curio to receive a positive stress release or health related boost, a positive quirk, or removal of a negative quirk if possible. Now when it comes to traps, traps look like this and more. Since we scouted the trap, we now have the opportunity to disable it, and there are once again classes which are more efficient in trap disarmament than other classes. So you see our Plague Doctor has only 60% chance to disarm, while our Highwayman has much higher chance. Of course, if you fail to disarm the trap, you will end up taking the damage from it. Now our task is to explore 90% of the rooms, so we have chance to go either for the battle or continue.
A fortune waiting to be spent.
Now the fun thing about Reynald is that each time you will start the game, Reynald will have the same negative quirk. He's a kleptomaniac, which means sometimes during the raid you will run into a curio and he will just rudely steal everything from it. I did not prompt this action. This is one of the things which you need to keep in mind when you want to hire a hero, as if you are doing a short raid and one of your heroes, or let's say all four of them, are kleptomaniacs, it's quite possible you will end up not getting any money besides the reward for successfully finishing the quest, as everything else will be stolen, and we saw that he stole some quests and other items. And this is the hunger. This is why you need the food. If I would give them nothing, all of them would receive a stress boost and also HP damage. But since we have actually the food, we can heal them and no stress damage will be affecting them. And I think in this room will be the final encounter, possibly. Okay, so here we have a wider range of these skeletal units. The defender sort of works like a tank. He will draw his attention towards him so that he can guard one of the enemies in the back, making you attack him. Which means the courtier can keep causing stress damage, and the arbalist can keep hitting your enemies from range. So I will try to get rid of the courtier at first. Since he has high speed, he is less susceptible to ranged attacks, so we need to make sure we can at least stock up a blight on him. That way we can ensure he will be slowly taken down.
Unnerved, unbalanced.
Thanks to our witch doctor, we have ensured that when the Arbalest's turn will come, he will die. Also, now I don't have to bother with the courtier anymore, as well as I can prioritize the 2 skeletons in the front row, as the blight damage will kill him as well.
The slow death. Unforeseen. Unforgiving. Their formation is broken. Maintain the offensive. A death by inches. Confidence surges as the enemy crumbles. Remind yourself that overconfidence is a slow and insidious killer.
So, this question mark should be filled out as we already utilized the skeletal key for a treasure chest. So this is the little hint which you will receive whenever you encounter a curio which you've already found. Now here we have a quite the decent type of loot. Now since there will be no more treasure chests, I will leave the skeletal key and instead take the 8 crests. Crests have the highest stackability. You can take 12 pieces of the crest with you in one of the item slots. The busts, I believe, have only 4. Portraits have the lowest one, they can only stack up to 3. Deeds can do 6. But I'm not sure, maybe the busts can do 6 as well. We will see in the next episode, as this will be the end of the second one for us, and I do hope you did enjoy the second dungeon crawl. So as you see, this was quite the successful first raid. Official raid, that is. Now, if you have experience with the game, leave some suggestions in the comment section. I'm always looking for helpful tips. If you liked the video, click the subscribe button to support me here and let me know that you enjoyed the work that I'm doing on my channel. If you did not like the video, you know what to do. I will not blame you. YouTube is a great platform when it comes to creating and uploading content. The rest of the things I will not address
All
as
my
of
life
yet.
I could feel an insistent gnawing in the back of my mind. It was a yearning, a thirst for discovery that could be neither numbed nor sated.
So, we have unlocked the Abbey. This is the local
The
church.
cobwebs have been dusted, the pews set straight. The Abbey calls to the faithful.
Both Abbey and the inn are used as a stress relief places for your heroes. So in case of our Vestal, we see that we have received quite a lot of stress damage, and if we were to take her on another raid immediately, she would start with half of her bar already filled out, and this means she would be most likely the target of any other stress dealing enemy in another raid, so that she would hit the breaking point where she would either receive a positive, which is less likely effect, and most likely negative effect from the stress. But all that will be discussed on the next episode. In the meantime, make sure to enjoy yourself, and I will see you on the next
Fresh
episode.
kegs, cards, and curtained rooms promise solace to the weary and broken alike.
Of Darkest Dungeon, here on Not Your Professional Walkthroughs with me, your host Max. The last thing I will speak about is the tavern, which I do not prefer to use, as utilizing bar or gambling hall or even brothel can create some quirks for your heroes, which will prevent them from either utilizing any of the other options. They can lose money while gambling, or they can become alcoholic or drunk, meaning you will not be able to take them on the next adventure. And with this, I will say goodbye to you, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.